Well, we are going to go into a few news items before we get into SmackDown and Rampage, and we will try and keep this all condensed. But one of the main stories came out of the most recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with everyone looking at what is going on in AEW. And this follows the news we haven't discussed yet that Ace Steel, Chris Guy, was in fact released by the company earlier this week. So that is the first major shoe to drop when it comes to any of the people directly associated with the brawl at All Out. So from the Observer, Dave Meltzer reports that AEW is in talks with Punk about the future, but right now it looks doubtful he will be back. Those with close knowledge of the situation said that they are in talks with Punk about a buyout of the remaining years of his contract, which tells you that they are not looking to bring him back. The holdup right now is said to be the non-compete period. Obviously, if the non-compete is an issue, it's about interest in going to WWE because there's no need for a non-compete otherwise, because nobody else but AEW and WWE can pay him close to what he was making. So it would certainly suggest that are you surprised at all, Way, that they are kind of going for the nuclear option with CM Punk, as opposed to they do have this injury that doesn't necessarily force the issue, that a resolution has to be made now, that, hey, let's all go our separate ways and we will reconvene in the new year because there's nothing to talk about right now as long as you're injured. We don't know, like maybe Punk is maybe AEW is scorched earth to him. That's definitely a question that's out there, but this would, it would certainly seem that they are at least at a point where the idea of an amicable solution to this is maybe not in the cards, and it is best that we figure a way out of our biggest star's contract.
Mm-hmm. Am I surprised? Maybe a little bit, yeah, because I think knowing perhaps how much CM Punk means to AEW and how much Tony Khan arguably needs him to achieve the heights that I think he intends to bring his company to, I felt like he would have done everything he could to perhaps ride this so that it would not be as big of an issue by the time he was ready to come back. And that eventually maybe everybody could be, back into the fold and we'd be able to make money off of, well, at least just at least their presence, never even mind playing off of this whole thing into an angle. But clearly things are quite beyond that at this point. No, at least from these reports, no real update on what litigation might possibly be happening involving these individuals. But I mean, this to me is a sign that things may be beyond repair, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and given the fact that Punk went through all of this, leaving the WWE, I mean, he was somebody that was very vocal about these contracts. And, and again, it definitely seems like Punk, did he have a strict independent contractor deal with AEW? Did he have other arrangements in his contract? Would he have been considered an employee? I think these are all questions that we are trying to look for some more clarity on, that makes this a little bit more difficult to look at. But I think, Punk is someone that is, you have to look at his age as well. Like, what is he looking to do? And the idea of having if it's a 2-year non-compete, I mean, that's pretty significant for a guy that is into his mid-40s and not wanting to hand this guy over to WWE, which I think you have to look at as a reasonable outcome here. That would be a great pickup for WWE, despite all of that history. I'd like that one would not surprise me at all of where he could potentially end up.
Not at all. No, of course not. It's so, man, like, it'll be really interesting to hear how, if that were to happen, for at this point, it's pure speculation, just, with our conversation here. But if that were to happen, what would the first words be out of CM Punk on WWE television? How would he necessarily justify it to an audience?
I've left professional wrestling again.
Yeah, I'm back.
I'm back at the place that made me sick.
Like, yeah, exactly. How would they justify it? And like knowing perhaps like that the persona that he has as sort of like being the most anti WWE guy there possibly could be, in the world, they might use that to their advantage to parlay that into an interesting storyline. But again, we're getting pretty way ahead of ourselves. But as far as like CM Punk, an individual, using the free market to get what is rightfully his, what he believes to be his in a legal system, of course he's going to do what he can to try to make the most money.
And either option here, a buyout with a non-compete, or you cut down that non-compete and he's looking at a potential very rich WWE offer. Like this guy is going to make out very, very well based on all of this, I would say.
Right. I'm also curious to know how the audience would react to him at this point. Much of his fan base, I think let's compare it to last year, when CM Punk came in. Really, again, the embodiment of the sort of the anti-WWE voice, the man who, was away for a long time, not including backstage, because that was technically Fox, I suppose, according to him. But, I think somebody who seemed like a very authentic person who had very high moral standing, not wanting to budge by ever going back to the company. Now, if he were to go back to the company, and at the same time, I think doing so at the expense of the opposition to the WWE, what is the hardcore wrestling fans' sentiment towards CM Punk at this stage, especially if he were to go back to the WWE?
I mean, you'd obviously have a very divided audience. I think you would have many that would view him as a hypocrite going back. I think you would have others that will absolutely, like, CM Punk is one of the most compelling figures we have ever covered. And I feel like there is a certain uniqueness when it comes to his fan base that I think will follow him anywhere. And also a guy that I think will, you give him a live mic and he comes out. I mean, like there was the thought of like, what will Cody's reception be when he comes in after, the mud that he slung towards WWE? I mean, that's been a home run. And I don't doubt that CM Punk going would be as impactful, if not more impactful, going to WWE. And maybe he's not a guy that you're looking at as like an everyday player in WWE, but to come in for a few shots a year, he could be a major difference maker for WWE. Like, I totally understand that side of it, but you will alienate a certain audience, and maybe you play to that.
Yep.
I don't know if that reaction would necessarily translate to in the arena for CM Punk, because he's a captivating figure that I think will come out, and I think he could charm the pants off of people going back, or he could be like a despised villain there too. Like, there's many ways you could cut it with him.
There's from a business perspective, there really is no bad outcome. This man with the gift of gab, like, could really kind of swing the crowd in his favor just with the first promo that he cuts. And it's especially if he's engaged in a very interesting storyline. Everybody will be watching, no matter how you might feel about CM Punk. If you're the most diehard of AEW fans, if there's a great CM Punk promo and if he's in a great program with somebody in the WWE, I guarantee you will be watching. Winning cures all. So, I mean, would you classify this as CM Punk being in a good position? I guess a lot of it depends on the negotiation out of this contract.
I honestly believe the best place for him is AEW, but that is, taking into account the fact that this is a very different locker room I think he would be returning to, in the sense that I think that press conference did irreparable harm. There are those in that locker room that I'm sure are very big Punk supporters, but I think it's very tough, I think, after that press conference to walk any of that back and kind of acclimate yourself back to that locker room. And
if you're the WWE or really potentially any employer that's looking to hire CM Punk, how, knowing the history you have with the man, and also knowing the what this man tends to do when he's employed by any sort of company working with other people, how do you mitigate, some of those potential issues with a Punk this time around?
Yeah, it's an issue. Like you do have a guy that went on live television and just went into business for himself with Hangman Page. That's what you're dealing with, like with a CM Punk. I think that the value to me greatly outweighs the risk of a CM Punk. But you go in knowing like this is the kind of personality that you are getting into business with, and it would seem, based on if this is accurate, that they are now in kind of a buyout negotiation stage, that that is AEW believing we cannot mend fences, because I do not think this is an asset they want to lose, but is one that perhaps for the greater good of this locker room, or just this is not a person we can come to an agreement with. Like this to me is like, as I said, this is the nuclear option, because I don't think this is somebody you want to be handing over. The last thing on Punk, when you talk about like this non-compete, is it in your mind, obviously financially there's only one option, would there be any other pro wrestling option for a CM Punk beyond WWE, especially at this stage of his career? This is not someone who is 35 anymore.
I can't see another pro wrestling company being able to, afford him.
No, it wouldn't be a money decision. It would be simply a, this is a guy that obviously, like this over this past year, I mean, you could see a passion of this individual. There's things you could do in pro wrestling for sheer happiness that don't come with those with the amount of money attached to it. But based on like this contract that was probably the richest contract in AEW, that you're gonna the potential of being bought out for, money might not be the only factor if you're looking at something. But I don't know what you're looking at beyond maybe like a fun one-off that you want to do. I would
even
say
the one-off. Where would the one-off take place, John?
Well, maybe he wants to do a run-in at another gym under a mask.
Of course, that's very possible. But I certainly don't see him doing anything for fun in Impact or MLW or New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't know if he's interested in that sort of fun. He's probably more likely to maybe, I don't know, commentate what does he commentate? What is this thing?
CFFC.
Maybe he'll do a run in CFFC, deliver GTS at CFFC. Or he might write a new Marvel comic, but I don't know if he'll be doing much in wrestling beyond those two options.
Your prediction, have we seen the last match involving CM Punk?
I'm going to say no. I think there's still plenty left in him. Yes, like the man did get injured, but like he had good matches during his AEW run.
His 1 year will be studied for years. It was a phenomenal year.
Amazing.
It was a phenomenal year. It was just ended in the most CM Punk way possible.
Yeah, really. Like, man, once we look back, now that it seems like we might actually have a definitive end to this AEW run, like we can look back and say, holy shit, like look at this, like look what happened in 1 year. Look how much changed in 1 year. At least we got the MJF feud out of it, didn't we?
They got a lot out of that year. Mm-hmm. Numbers from Tuesday. We since we haven't done a show since